Welcome to Learn More. In the previous lesson, we learned about psychological method of data collection, and we looked at case study and clinical method. So those are the two methods we looked at, case study and clinical method. We learned about the meaning of case study, the merit and demerit of case study. We looked at clinical method and steps adopted in clinical method. So now we are still on the topic psychological method of data collection, and we'll be looking at introspection and correlation method. Just introspection and correlation method. Our learning objective is, at the end of the lesson, the learner should be able to explain introspection method and give advantages and disadvantages of introspection method. So you should be able to explain introspection method, you should be able to give advantages and disadvantages of introspection method, and you should be able to explain correlation method. So let's look at introspection method. The word introspection means self-observation. Self-observation. Introspection method is the oldest method of data collection by psychology. So it is one of the oldest methods of data collection in psychology. This method refers to the process of looking within or looking inward to experience one's own mental state. So in this method, you are looking within, you are looking inward, you want to understand your own mental state. You want to understand your mental state. You are observing yourself, you are looking at yourself in order to understand your mental state. It is a process of examining one's mental process of thought, feeling, and motives. So you are looking at yourself, you want to understand your mental state. You are looking at someone, you want to understand the person's mental state. Let's look at the advantages of introspection. It is very economical and it doesn't require the use of apparatus. So in introspection method, you don't require the use of apparatus. So it is very economical. The money you should use in getting apparatus could be used for other things. So that's why it is very economical. Introspection method is useful anytime and anywhere. It can be used anytime, anywhere. Be it in the school, wherever. In the clinic, wherever. Introspection method is very useful. Like I said before, it is one of the oldest method for data collection. It is one of the oldest method. Then number 3, introspection method is about the easiest method. So everybody could actually introspect. Everybody could actually observe. You could actually look at things and understand what's going on. And number 4, it is the only method which can help an individual to look at his emotions and feelings. So it is through introspection that you can understand the emotions of individual and you can understand the feelings of individuals. So let's look at the disadvantages of introspection. Number 1, it is difficult to introspect change in psychological experience. It is difficult to introspect changes in psychological experience. It is very difficult to introspect changes in psychological experience. So you cannot say you want to start observing psychological experience in people. You can't observe. So it's very difficult to do that. And number 2, the data collected cannot be verified. You can't verify the data you collect in introspection method. Then number 3, data collected can be easily influenced. So understanding that you are using your mind to understand what's going on, but what if you are not in the right state of mind at that time? So your information could actually be very wrong. And number 4, it is done only by adults. So a child cannot introspect because the child may not understand all the rudiments that should be used for introspection. In introspection, the mind is both the field and the instrument of observation. So the mind is both the field and the instrument of observation. So let's look at correlation method. This method is used by teachers and psychologists to to establish the degree of relationship between two variables. So in correlation, you should know that before you should correlate, you should have more than one variable. You should have two variables or more than two variables. So it is actually used by teachers and psychologists. Example, correlation method can be used to establish whether there is a relationship between performance of learners in two subjects. So let's say, for example, maths and economics. So you are trying to understand, is there a correlation between the performance of students between two subjects like maths and economics? Or could there be a correlation between the performance of students between two subjects like commerce and accounts? Could there be a similarity? Could there be a connection between the performance? Could the people that did very well in accounts, can they actually do very well also in commerce? Those people that pass maths, would they also pass economics? You know, these are some questions that could arise in correlation. Correlation can be used to establish the degree of association between IQs of parents and their children. It can be used to establish the degree of association between IQs of the parents and their children. Correlation method can be used to predict the value of one variable from a known value of another. So you can actually predict values from one variable to another. Correlation method can be used to determine the magnitude of relationship between variables. So you are trying to understand the magnitude of relationship or relationships between variables. In summary, we have learned about psychological method of data collection. We looked at introspection and correlation method. We looked at introspection and correlation method. We looked at introspection method, advantages of introspection method, and we looked at correlation method. So in the next lesson, we are still under the psychological method of data collection, and we are looking at the last two, which is testing and experimental method. Testing and experimental method. So that will be the last lesson on the series of lessons for psychological method of data collection. So let's look at testing and experimental method in the next lesson. See you in the next lesson. Don't forget, share our video, subscribe to our channel, and make sure you tell someone about it so that the person could also benefit from our lessons. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.